fire, I think probably because of safety regulations, but the idea of the Fireside chat is to have a more intimate conversation. Michaela, I'm going to introduce you properly in just a second, but you just said this is your baby. And I'm so excited to hear about what you're about to say. But here we are with our Fireside chat with Michaela Speth. Today you're the permanent representative of Germany to the OECD, but back in 2014 and in 2015 you led the Energy Policy and International Commodity Policy Division at the German Federal Foreign Offices. And Ellen von Sitzewitz, today you are with the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action as the Deputy Head for Division VB1, General Issues of Bilateral Climate and Energy Cooperation. But in 2015, you were an advisor to the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. Fantastic. So here we are. We also have four fantastic guests. Don't stand up yet. I'll introduce you. Actually, I would love it if you could stand up. I'd love to introduce these four individuals, these people here in the front row. David Vedepol from BSW, Christoph Urbschat from McLaren, Sebastian Yassim from BEE, and Christina Haverkamp from DINA. It's really such a treat to have you. We're going to come get some questions for you in a second. It's really an honor to have the six of you and the four of you here. It's really, I have to say, it's just such a treat to do this. Right now, I want to take a quick second for all of us here in the Europasaal to take a look back at 10 years of the BETD. Let's watch this screen here. So celebrating a decade for the energy transition, 10 years of the BETD. Now, we've watched this during rehearsals maybe 5 or 6 times, and I don't know if you've seen it before or if this is your first time. But even after seeing it this many times, I have to say I get chills seeing this, all of these incredible faces, seeing everything that has been accomplished over the last 10 years. Michaela Speth, Ellen von Sitzewitz. Right now, I'd like to both of you on stage look back over the years, over the months, before the first BETD, actually all the way back to 2014. I was speaking with David earlier, and he said, back then there were climate conferences, but there wasn't really a conference that focused specifically on the Energiewende. Michaela Speth, when you look at these colleagues of yours, your comrades in arms here in the front row, I'm really curious, what was it like back then? How did the idea of an Energiewende conference emerge? I think I've heard the terms the Davos of the energy transition or Energiewende for diplomats. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. It all came about because Germany shifted very quickly at the time from the nuclear to the Energiewende, and we got really into publicizing this and to give our diplomats training in how to defend it and how to see the Energiewende as the one issue which really German foreign policy was going forward. And we wanted to have a place where to showcase what is all already happening in Germany at this point. And we then said, okay, we have to train the people who will be at the embassies. And so we had a week, and at one point we asked the, the Verbände, the different energies, solar and so on, whether they wanted to talk to the people who were going out. And somehow they had a training program, and then they came up, and all of a sudden they came with the idea, we could do a conference about this, because there is nothing where we can showcase what is happening in Germany, what we are doing. And at the same time, that there is also a commercial side to it, which we had at the time. And that's why the Verbände are in this. And so we said, okay. And then somebody said, I don't know, I think it was Jörg who said this the first time, the Davos of, it could be the Davos of the Energiewende. And I know that another ministry which later on joined, which is now our friend in arms, at the same time said, this is far too ambitious to do and you will not make it. And then finally we said, okay, let's just do it. We have a little bit of money, let's try. And what we have is this wonderful venue which has stayed. And if you look at the first actually poster which I found, there is still the building here on, and there are windmills and so on as on it. And so finally, at one point somebody had to say, boss, this will work. And then it all came from there, and it has become the Davos of the renewables. And times have changed, but it is as it is. And I think we got our ideas forward, and yeah, I'm very proud to have said at the time, as a small, and this may be the one thing in my career of 38 years in the Foreign Service where I really leave something behind which will stay on, and I think this is great. As well as looking into the mirror, I always said, and I think this is my biggest heritage here, I said, don't come to me if you don't have 50% women on the panel. And that I did 10 years ago.
I do want, yeah, I think we can applaud that. I want to, if we have time, I want to come back to that. But because you brought up your colleague, what was it like, Ellen von Sitzewitz, to say, okay, actually, yes, let's support this? How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, the story is a little bit different from our perspective, but I'm definitely, it was basically the idea of these wonderful colleagues sitting here, Eclarion, BSW, and then also Dena BE and others came in. And it was, as I remember, it was actually the Foreign Office said, yes, do it when the at this time it was called BMWI is joining. And we just had a merger between the former Ministry of Environment, where actually renewable energy was positioned, and the former Ministry of Economy. So I was very fresh also in that ministry at that time. And we came from the International Energy Corporation. So for us, we really saw also already the international interest in it. And then it bounced back the first time from our ministry. And then I think there was a second try. And then they came to us. And then we said, yes, with this, we knew from the IRENA Corporation, Michaela and her team. So we gave it a try. And I would also like to mention Martin Schöpe and Thorsten Herdan, who were very supportive at that time. The bulk of work was on my shoulder, but I think that was very important that these personalities also supported it. And then we had, I think we started in November, and immediately we had 1,200 guests, and we had 35 ministers and secretaries of state. And that was like, wow, the interest is so big. And from the beginning, I think it was also innovative, because energy sector is not so gender balanced, that we were trying to have 50% of female speakers. Oh, that was really difficult, very difficult. I mean, we had Christine Linz, we had in the DENA already some personalities, but internationally it was also quite a challenge to get a program together with that approach.
Thank you so much, Ellen von Sitzewitz. I may have given a little bit of a misdirection to my crew, because I do want to give the 4 representatives from these Verbände that Michaela Späth mentioned a chance. You saw the video here from these 10 years of the BETD. And if I could ask the 4 of you briefly to think about, really for just a second, because we have to move on, of course, to our next event. But from looking at all of these images on the screen, seeing the people here on stage, if you can think of one moment that really sticks out in your mind, perhaps we can bring a microphone to you, and if you can share with the audience here in the Europasaal and people catching us later on YouTube, what sticks out most in your mind? While Tommy brings us a microphone, I want you all to think about that for a minute. And I'd like to ask, who would like to start of the 4 of you? Christina Haferkamp, please. That's right.
Thank you. Yes, ladies first. I'm the 4th here, but the only one over there. Things are changing. Well, the one thing that is sticking out for me is, I have to admit, the Russian attack on Ukraine in February 2022, because at that time we were in charge of implementing the German-Russian energy dialogue, and we have been visiting Moscow together inter alia prior to that. And I think it was, for everybody in the international community, a shock, and it very much dominated the subsequent discussions also at BETD. And I mean, looking back now, I think it was a moment in history which has really changed the atmosphere, geopolitics, the way we cooperate. And this is why I personally believe that the BETD is extremely important, because we need to stick together, we need to talk to each other, and we need to do it peacefully.
Thank you so much, Christina Haferkamp. Gentlemen, we have 1.5 minutes left. So I get to ask which of the three of you would like to speak. And of course, we would love to get your thoughts on social media later from each of your organizations. Please, I'll ask you to choose amongst yourselves. Who would you like to stand up and speak? All right. Christoph Urbschat from Clarion. Tommy's going to hand you a microphone. And we really have about a minute.
Well, thank you. There are too many moments to talk about. So I would like to think back about our talks at the beginning before starting the first BETD. I think it was several months we discussed it, and I can clearly remember that time when we then decided to do it. It was also taking a risk, and this is what I remember. And also the big relief from all our shoulders at the close of the first BETD in 2015. From then we saw it's a success, it's running. Yeah, and it's great to see you all again here. David.
Thank you so much, Christoph Urbschat. David, go ahead, please. We have a minute.
Okay, sorry. So mine is also not a happy one, and it relates to what you said. 2018, we just started discussing the geopolitics of the energy transition here together with Irina and launched the commission. And that point was then driven home March 22 with the Deputy Energy Minister of Ukraine saying that the Russian military was targeting their energy infrastructure. March 22, it's the first time that I have heard of this. So really it has changed the game, and it has shown how much relevance renewable energy now has. Sebastian?
Sebastian, 20 seconds.
Okay, I make it very quick.
Do it.
Well, I'm very happy how this narrative changed, how the debate changed. 10 years ago, we talked about the energy transition, how to do it, and if it's feasible. Now we're talking about tripling renewables, supply chains, raw materials, and I'm confident and hopefully optimistic that in 10 years, we talk about how to get from 90% to 100%. So let's work on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sebastian, Christina, Christoph, David. In our last couple of minutes, we'd love to come back to the two up on front, up on the stage with me. Okay. We talked in our previous session about priorities. We had a panel called A Decade for the Energy Transition. We have a decade of the BETD behind us. Where do you think we need to focus for the next 10 years? And I have to ask you to keep your answers, unfortunately, very brief. Ellen von Sitzewitz.
Yeah, I think we have a clear task, and actually this tripling renewables, doubling efficiency, moving away from fossil fuels, that's our clear task, which we have to do. I think it's also important that we do it all together, which in my sense, also coming from the Ministry of Economy, means the business partners. So the politicians which are here giving the framework for the private sector investments. And the technology is all there. So now it's really the acceleration, and for the acceleration we also need to accelerate actually private sector investment in the energy transition on all means. And then there is this human element involved, I think all in, as we also discussed it on the COP28. I think we need more skilled workers, and we need them from everywhere. And I come back to the point which had before, we don't have that in the energy sector. We didn't have that in the fossil fuel sector with 21% of women, and in the renewables it looks a bit better, but it only looks a bit better. When you look a little bit more in the management positions, even in wind and solar, we are far less than 15%, 1.5. So I think all in for us means all technologies, acceleration, but it also means all the best heads, and that also means inclusion and gender parity. And I think the BETD needs to develop further. I think this BETD is definitely different also from the others. I think there will be more regional focuses. We also will have maybe more thematic focuses. The interlinkage also with climate, methane, certain subjects will be very strong. But I think this community is just so great, and I really hope that this will grow and further develop, and I'm really looking forward to the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen von Sitzewitz. The final word for you, Michaela Späth.
Okay. I think the real big issue will be not finding the money is there, but is to have the border, to make the financing possible, and to have not the investment in Namibia or other countries is far too risky for a number of people. When you look where the money goes, it goes all to us, to the developed countries, and it is the market has to change. So the reform of the whole financial system is very important, and I think this is an issue which will be pushing forward. I mean, the OECD is also, that's where I come from now, a bit as the ambassador there, is really looking into this, and all what you have said is of course true. We have the problem here that we don't have the work power, we need inclusiveness, we need acceptance, and I think we have to be very aware that there is a political rollback where green is not sexy anymore, and we have to make green and to be at the side of the climate, we have to make this something we defend before others say what you are doing is just woke and we don't want this. So please stay all tuned and support the Energiewende and continue. I always used to have a small spoon here in silver, and it was everybody can have a little spoon. If we all work on this one, the mountain goes away. You don't need to have the big engines. So this is what the BETD will also always show, that it is all us and that it's worldwide, and otherwise I can just subscribe to everything you have said before. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michaela Späth. Thank you, Ellen von Sitzewitz. Thank you to my four guests in the front. We're going to continue the conversation here with a dialogue hub with my colleague Hajar on decarbonizing supply chains. Thank you so much for joining us today.